are your kind of predictions for 2020? What are you seeing in the trends from your perspective?
I think for me, honestly, I see a lot of change, and I see a lot of change to this country, right? Like, for a lot of things that have happened, and I've said this probably for a good 5 years, like literally the whole government thing is going to shift big time.
Danielle Mercury, it's time for the show with Danielle. Welcome to the show, Danielle Mercury. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Happy 2020. Bet you haven't heard that before, huh, my loves? Well, here we are, new decade, new you, new year, all the things. And many of you tune in because I do have some cosmic insight. I am very in tune with the stars. I love astrology. I've been geeking out over it since I was 5 years old. And it's something that I can bring to you all now in a more mainstream way. And, I've been doing a lot of thinking around the fact that astrology is something that more people are receptive to than ever before. People are checking their horoscopes before they're checking the weather. And that's like really awesome. And that's really exciting. And so it brings us to this wondering why? Why is astrology more popular? Because technically it's been around for a while. Like, everyone knows of astrology. Everyone knows of horoscopes. It's been in the newspapers for centuries. And since there was print, right? It's kind of, I actually would love to find that out. When newspaper print came to be, who was the first person to be like, we're putting horoscopes in there? But it's been around. However, it's been more regarded as factual, as a tool to use for awareness of how to move forward more than ever. And what do we account to that? Do we account, the rise of spirituality? Do we account, our consciousness moving into a space where we're having a higher connection with something deeper, something more meaningful? Or do we just, say it was the memes? I think I'm going to go with that. I think the memes are what have caused a spiritual revolution, if you will, in our day and age. And, you go to the Instagram and they're there for you. They get you. And I really think that that's part of what has helped bring more of this conscious conversation and cosmic awareness into play. Now, I can't do it all on my own. So I'm bringing in one of my favorite lionesses, Maji, Astro Maji. I hope she likes this jingle that I made for her. She's amazing. We connected on Instagram back when I was New You City, back when I was just tapping the cosmic waters of coming out in this way. And she was here for it. And we really connected. We were able to meet a couple times in New York, and I just love her. She's such a beautiful, bright, intuitive light, and really fun, really soulful, really playful. And we have a really amazing conversation around the cosmos, dating. You learn some trippy secret stuff that I used to do, aka cybering. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we are outing all of that, but we are. Maji is amazing. She's so resourceful and insightful around astrology and the stars. She's actually booked out through March. That's how good she is. So if you want to check her out, you can go to her website, www.astromaji.com, or follow her like I do on the Instagram. She has card polls, lots of great information. But just wait till you get into this conversation with her and I. When two Leos that geek out over astrology have a conversation, here's what happens. Hello, my love, my Leo love, my Leo sister.
My Leo sister.
Wait, remind me, how much Leo do you have in your chart?
Honestly, I only have the sun in the 12th house.
Oh.
But I still absolutely feel very lioness all the time.
I mean, it's interesting because I sometimes feel like, I'm triple Leo in the sense of sun, moon, rising, but sometimes I'm like, well, that's not a ton.
It's not a ton. It's enough.
I guess it is. It is because it's like the three. Like I think it's like the three like prominent areas of the chart.
Yes, I definitely think that's the top three, the big three as they call it these days.
Yeah,
I'm very Virgo stellium-ish in the first house. So yes, a lot of people do think, I have that, down to earth kind of practical but yet critical of myself type of thing going in my chart, which is very true.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I kind of feel that too. Are you like on board with that?
I'm on board with that for sure. I feel like even Leos are pretty critical of themselves because they're perfectionists too. So I feel like it's like
Stop telling
both signs
people
are like
this.
that.
She's all wrong.
She's all wrong.
Leos are just super chill and go with the flow.
That's it.
But no, you're absolutely right. There is a connection there. And for me, it's like I do have Virgo, Mercury, Venus. So it's like I have the Leo, but then it's like right in the background.
Yep, same Z's.
Second
That
house.
Venus Virgo. Can we discuss this Venus Virgo for a little while?
Sure.
I mean, how do you feel having that in your chart? Because I think it like terrorizes me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still single. So does that answer that question?
I can't. I have had probably, I want to say like 20 boyfriends in my life and some long term. And it's really, I don't know, there's always something that I find that isn't working, which is not really good. So.
Yeah, I can find things that aren't working before I even meet them, before I even match with them. I've already like somehow intuitively figured out what's wrong with them.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. How do you feel being an astrologer and an intuitive dating?
Yes. Well, so I'm curious what you do, but for me, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. So when it comes to the astrology piece, I actually choose not to go down that rabbit hole in the beginning. Yeah. It's just, it's not necessary. And I found that anytime that I found out too much too soon, it just amplifies the intuition, right? And then I'm making so many preconceived notions when we do want to, factor in other things like, is there chemistry? What aspects of their personality have nothing to do with astrology? Maybe they're environment based and different things like that. So I really try to stay away. But then, of course, like once I start to like them, it's like, I want to see the juice. I want to see what's in there. And then with the intuition, I mean, I think that's stronger than the astrological piece because it's like, honestly, I can usually tell either before I even meet them, especially if it's like an app.
Right.
And like I can usually tell from the app, but I like still I'm like, no, like, again, like we're having a conversation. We've made arrangements to go out. Like I'm gonna go for it, even if my intuition is kind of like, like I don't want to deny myself either.
Absolutely.
So let me do it. But then it seems like either like within the first 5 seconds, it's like I just know. I'm like, this isn't right.
And it's so tough. And I think, we wake up and this is how we are, right? So it's kind of like, all right, cool. Like, you got to be true to yourself. This is who I am. But then you start to wonder, do other people deal with this during everyday life? Because I could be, I say on an app, right?
Right.
And it comes up and I look at the person's picture and I know in my gut, like, are they a good person? Do they have issues? Like I already could see it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, like how am I ever going to really give somebody like the benefit of the doubt from jump? And I do, like you said, you go out, you sit down, you have a conversation, because at the end of the day, I feel like everybody, adds some value to your life. You know what I mean? Like no matter, I think everybody's a catalyst for your own growth and your own journey, so cool. We're sitting, we're hanging out. But then it's like, in your gut when you first meet them, like if it's gonna like be long term or if it's not. It's just so interesting.
True,
to
you
me.
do. And it's always interesting when you have that moment of like, oh, it's not you. And it's kind of like, okay. And like you said, I do think there is something to be said for, continuing to move forward with it, even if you're getting an intuitive hit. It is so funny because like there are times too, like I'll get downloads like about like their family history.
Yes.
Right?
Oh
like
my gosh.
Like all of their like energetic drama and like some of the things that they're carrying, what like weighs heavy on their heart. Like that's what I seem to pick up on.
100%. And my friends too, they're like, Maji, I met this guy. I need to send you the picture. Like, what do you feel about him? And I'll give them like a paragraph. And they're just like, oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? Like exactly what it is. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what I picked up on.
I know.
And I'm like, is this normal? Like,
I don't think it is. And my friends do that too. And I always like, it's so much better when I do get a good read. It's nice when those photos come through and you're like, oh, yes. Like,
yes, he's great.
Good
as opposed to, ooh, this one has issues.
And then like, it's like, for me, I'm always like how far do I want to go with it? Like,
Correct. Correct. I censor myself too. I'm like, no, Madge, don't do it, man. Just like let her live the dream for a little while.
I know. My friends can tell. They're like, you're kind of quiet. I'm like, oh.
You're like biting your tongue. You're like, oh my God.
I'm like, no, I'm just so happy for you. There's nothing else to say. I just
Oh my
love that
gosh.
you're moving through with this. Cool. Great.
Amazing.
But yeah, no, it is. So I think it's just a matter of, I mean, it is our heightened power.
It really is. But like you said, I think it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've learned to really rely on my gut feelings. I think when I was younger, sometimes I would go against them, and then it never worked out in a good way. So,
Mhm. Same.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's still hard. I mean, I still have moments where I get that intuitive hit and then I quote unquote go and do something that I think in my head is easier, yet it just becomes increasingly more difficult as a result.
I totally hear you on that. I could
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I'm curious about this from your perspective more so on this, the intuitive piece, because technically everyone has the ability to be intuitive, but there are people, like you were saying, that wake up and they go about their day and they have no intuitive sense throughout their day at all. And things are very black and white and they're not reading people or able to tell like people's energy or pick up on like emotional intelligence or whatnot. And in some ways that feels very freeing, but
Hmm.
I mean, I also see it as very limiting in a lot of ways
I
too.
do too. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. It's interesting because sometimes I do ask some of my super 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 black and white
Mhm.
practical like type A friends, and they're absolutely like fascinated by how I view things versus how they view things. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, what do you mean? Like that has nothing to do with it. Like they just get up. They're like, all right, cool. I'm gonna do the spreadsheet, with these numbers, and I'm gonna go home, and I'm gonna go to the gym, and I'm gonna eat dinner, and I'm gonna go to sleep, and that's it. Like they don't really have. And there's nothing about like, oh, my gut told me not to, or told me to, or I had to follow my gut. Like there's none of that. It's just very like this practical, everything's based on facts, and they don't even think about anything mystical. So it's just interesting. Like it's interesting to me, like to meet people like that too. Like some of them ground me, but on the other way, like a lot of them didn't believe in astrology. A lot of them didn't believe in like say Reiki. They're like, what do you mean? You're not even gonna touch me and I'm gonna feel it? These things like this. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the
And
Reiki
then
one's a hard sell.
that's very hard. But the funny thing is, I was like, well, you know what? Let's just mess around a little bit. So I'll pull up their charts. I'll start telling them stuff, whatever. They just look at me like, how did you even know that? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just like funny. So then they start to like somewhat believe. And maybe, like maybe they won't read the horoscopes in the paper because it's like, not based
Right.
on
I
your
mean,
own chart.
those
Right.
aren't great
But
anyway.
yeah, no, but like at the end of the day, I see them more open
Mhm.
to it after they have a conversation. They're like, wow, and then they start to try to, I'll give them little intuition games like, oh, hey, like which one did I put the stone under? You know what I mean? Like for the cups and
Mhm.
stuff. And then they're just like, wow, this is pretty fascinating, because they do have instincts.
Right.
Everybody has instincts.
They do.
So it's almost like kind of, building on that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with not buying into it right away either,
No.
right? Like I know
Mm-mm.
some people that are on our side of our community, like they get frustrated by people that are like skeptical or whatnot. I'm like, well, they have every right to be in the beginning. Like I'm sure there are
Mm-hmm.
things that you don't buy into immediately. And that's, instincts, like you said, and that's our curiosity. And, there's nothing wrong with explaining and educating. And then someone can decide if they're still just not into it. But like give people that benefit of being a little bit like questioning, because
Absolutely.
that's your opportunity right there to share. And if anything, it'll just build your confidence in understanding how to explain what it is that you do.
I completely agree. And I mean, I even worked with some people, in the advertising space, and we did like daily, weekly, monthly meditations together,
Mhm.
and people started to open up their third eye, and they were like, wow, like I feel like I'm moving a little bit different. Like I feel like, I keep seeing these repeating numbers, and I keep like they just kind of like, get into it without having to delve into it like into woo land right away. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right, right,
So
right. They're not like
it's
us where
nice. Yeah, it's not like, hey, like it's a
yeah,
little different,
yeah,
but it's cool. I feel like it's so nice to see. And honestly, I think now people are way more open to
oh
this than
yeah,
they were when I was young.
oh yeah,
It's just
100%.
it's 100%. You know what I mean? Like all us like the 80s babies were like we'll grew up to like Ronald Reagan having astrologer, and I think that was probably like 40% of people. And now I feel like 80% of people go to see somebody in
Yeah,
some capacity. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
People are
So
seeking counsel, and
hmm
people are wanting to expand upon their own sense of consciousness in a way that is becoming contagious.
hmm I
And
agree.
it's really exciting, and it's why, like, one of the things I've been starting to share with individuals that feel like they want to be doing work in this world, in this industry rather, like step up, because people are ready for it now more than ever. It's only going to keep growing. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying that from a space of like amazing, because there's not enough people to fill the need. And so that's why it's so important that individuals that identify as a healer start to get their ducks in a row, or their crystals in a row, right?
Yes.
And understand how you're offering this help and these services, because it's only going to keep increasing.
I completely agree. And it really warms my heart, because say like I open up my Instagram and I start to look at what everyone's doing. I feel like everybody has something unique about them. And it really makes me so happy. Like I get chills all over my body. I'm like, wow, like this person's really living their authentic life. Like, you know, like you, like not only do you like incorporate your comedy into everything, you know what I mean? And like your lighthearted ways and your dancing and stuff like that. I also love to like sing and joke around when I do readings and stuff like that. But like, I think it's just so cool seeing everybody bring something different to the table. And you can, you know, have a reading from you can have a reading from me or somebody else, and each one of us brings their uniqueness, so nothing's the same. So there's a space for everybody in this industry, and it really does warm my heart.
Yeah, there's a place for everyone, everyone's personalities, the ways that everybody facilitates their gifts, their price point, right? There's a price point for everyone.
Absolutely.
So, like, you know, it's like everyone, like Jeff Bezos is probably not going to get your $50 reading, because that means nothing to him. But
Right.
I mean, I don't know if he's getting readings from people, but if someone was offering like a 10K one, that might feel more.
Maybe.
I don't know. But like, I always think that I'm like, don't worry about what it like. It just has to feel good to you, and that will feel good to someone else. And like,
I agree.
Go from there. But it is interesting, because even how long have we been connected for a while? Like, I feel like you were one of my early Instagram friends.
I think so. Yeah, it's got to be, because
Like,
you lived in this city. I think it was
right
before you even moved, like
Yeah,
anywhere.
we connected online first, and then I
Yes.
wound up seeing you in person a couple times.
Yes, we ended up meeting up. I think it was one of Gabby's events. It was just amazing to see you in person. And then I went to your Kundalini class, and I went to the yoga class, and I just loved that as well. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that must have been like 2012-ish, 2013.
Yeah, because you were on 14th Street at the yoga studio.
Yeah, I was. Oh, memories.
Whoa.
Oh, and now I'm in a cold room in Philadelphia. What happened?
But you're doing angel things. I mean, it's pretty cool.
I am working with the angels in this city. They were a little dormant here.
You're bringing them over there.
Yeah, they're coming out. They're coming out of the woodwork. I mean,
I love it.
Clearly, Philly's very similar to New York in a lot of ways, from the space of like, just there's a lot of history here, clearly, and so there's a lot of spirit. There's a lot of energy. Just when you're in an older city.
That's very true. Yeah, it's really cool there. I've been there a couple times. It's nice.
It does all right. But where was I going with this? Not just to be like memory lane. But when we connected, I mean, I really feel like I didn't know that many astrologers, especially astrologers that were like around my age and kind of up and coming. I mean, it was really like Susan Miller, who I know you trained through her lineage, and Astro Twins, and you know, there were a few players, but for the most part, there was just kind of us like little curious like star seeds that were like,
I agree,
awesome.
100%. And you had didn't you have like your, what was it, like a martini night or something?
Oh
with,
yeah,
like,
I used
cards?
to. I had first I did meditation and margaritas.
Yes, that's what it was, meditation and margaritas.
Yeah, I did, and
I
then
love it.
I did have some mystic class where people could bring their card decks, and I which is so fun. And I taught people how to do oracle card readings, and then they were able to give readings on each other.
I love this.
I was in such a space, and I'm so, and I share this too, because like you and I were willing to be more, and I mean, honestly, it was really at the dawning of the Aquarian age, if you think about it.
I agree.
That we were willing to step up and start sharing about these things, which are now becoming more mainstream. There's still a long way to go, but you know, you and I were just willing to like put stuff out there and try, and like a lot of people did not know what we were doing. We had to get creative. I mean, the only reason why I did meditation margaritas was because no one was going to come to my class if I just called it like meditation in the city.
Especially in the city.
Like try to be cool, be like meditation in the city, like Sex in the City, right? You get it? They're like, no, I'm not coming. So we had to be a little bit more creative to get people through the door, and so I was like, all right, well,
I agree. I agree. And you did like your cool Periscope
Yeah,
thing back in the day. Remember that?
yeah,
Like we
I
used to like sing. We used to sing together.
yeah, it was so much fun.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. It's really funny to see it, like how far we've come. You know what I mean? When I
exactly.
watched some of my videos with the
Oh,
horoscopes back then, I was like, Lord,
I know. I'm like such a baby.
such a
Like such a
baby.
little baby. I like look at it, I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. But still really powerful too. Like,
Yes.
like there was like an innocence, but also like some of the stuff I'm like, oh, well, that was good.
Absolutely. I
Kudos.
agree.
If
I
I were
think
coaching you,
I
all
have to
right.
high five. Well, let's high five each other on that.
Yeah.
It's true. It wasn't easy because you're
No.
putting yourself out there, and no matter what, there are people that are gonna like it and people that are
Yeah.
not. You know what I
Right.
mean? I feel like
Right.
these days though,
It's
it's
better.
even worse. Well,
Well, it's better
it's
and worse.
better. It's better
Hmm.
and worse. It's better to like to share yourself, but the comments and
I
some
know.
of the people and what they say is very scary. So if you're
That's
starting
true.
out now, it's
Hmm.
like you need to have a thick skin because
Right.
sometimes people are just mean for no reason on the internet. I'm
Yeah.
just like, ooh, it's a
Yeah. Don't
lot.
be, yeah. Don't feel like you have to like, and I think that happens a lot when people are starting out. Like they feel like they have to like people always tell me, like, I have to do more videos. I have to do more of this. I'm like, do one thing at a time. It's okay if you just need to be private for a little bit just to get some practice in and like start small because you're
Yep,
right. Like people have this very strange backbone online because like no one can see them and they just think that they can just like bully people and say whatever it is that they want.
very true.
And it's not right, but it's part of what's happening. And so we can't let that bring down your spirit or your gifts. And so,
Nope.
and again, this is only going to keep growing and trending. I mean, some of the things that we were like getting into 8 years ago are now like really like have taken off. And like, I mean, like Sephora sells products from like moon juice now. And,
I know. I
it's like,
know. I
what?
was reading an article the other day. I think it was like in Cosmopolitan about like moon cycles and how to do moon baths and showers and stuff
Oh
like
my
that. And like,
gosh.
I was taking things out from the water. I was like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? And like it was pretty cool. I'm like, this didn't happen back in the day
No,
when I used to read this magazine. I still read it, so I
no.
was just like, wow, like this is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. The only exciting thing that would happen with Cosmo when we were growing up was the bedside astrologer.
Yes, I
That
remember that as
Oh
well.
my god, I loved it. I was like,
I
"This
did
is who I
too.
get to have sex with."
Yes, and then Vogue had like Athena Star Woman or something.
Yes, yes, yeah. So, like, whenever that would happen, I would just geek out. I would get so excited.
Right? Like you'd like run and like look to that picture
Yeah,
and like, oh my gosh,
I
now
know.
they have like big ones,
Yeah.
where
I
both
miss
of us were quoted in it. It's just
Oh, I
awesome. I
know.
love it.
Right,
I
now
love
we're
it.
in
It's
Cosmo,
awesome.
which is
Isn't
cool,
it
right?
crazy?
It's
Right?
so
I love
crazy.
it.
It's
This
so
is great.
crazy. But I used to love that. Like, I used to love, like, taking the time to, like, go to the New Age bookstore and, like, see if there were any new astrology books or see if, there were any magazines or, like, any kind of content that I could, like, take in.
Totally agree. What was like your favorite astrology book to learn from?
Oof. Well, I mean, I love Linda Goodman.
Yes,
However, I
she's
don't know,
great.
but I didn't learn astrology. Well, in some ways I learned astrology through her, but that was more of my like learning people and astrology through her.
Hmm.
As far as like books that taught me about astrology that I love, I don't even know. I feel like there were so many.
I know there's a lot out there, but the funniest thing with
I
Linda
haven't bought a
Goodman,
new
I'll never forget her, what she said. When an Aries baby is in the crib, they see their feet and they think it's the whole world. And I'll never forget that line from her book. No matter
one.
how
Yeah.
old I get, I will
Hmm.
never forget that line. I'm like,
That's so
she's so
true.
right.
I know. She just understood the psychology of people so
Yes.
well.
Yes.
That's what I loved about it. And then I think I just started pulling from books around like how you actually look at charts and aspects and kind of some of the more nitty gritty stuff. I didn't really use online.
Right. Yeah.
And
Back then, it was just a lot of books, basically.
I would just read different books and like let it connect the dots,
Hmm.
so to speak. And then I haven't bought a new astrology book in years. What was the last
I think I
astrology
bought a few.
book?
There was one, I think, just like there's something about chart interpretation. I can't remember the exact name. And I did read the book called like The Eagle and the Lark, I think it's called.
Okay.
It was a pretty deep astrology book
Ooh,
about like
nice.
aspects. I was like, woo, this is a
Yeah.
lot, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then there were things by like Noel Teal and stuff about solar
Mhm.
arcs, and
Yeah.
it's deep. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Oh,
Like everyone now, even now, I see people posting about perfections and stuff. I was like,
Oh,
wow, people are really getting into this now.
I know. It's gone so beyond what's your sign and having one
Yes.
answer to now being like, oh, well, if you're referring to my sun, it's this, my moon is this, my rising is this. And it's really cool, the awareness. And yeah, people are, and you know what's really interesting? It's almost like as it's getting more layered, I notice, and I'm just gonna start announcing this more. Like I notice I'm like shifting away from it a little bit because it almost feels like people are getting it, and it's like my work here is like starting to feel good, and I can start to move into the next thing.
Right. Yeah.
At least for
I
me.
mean, you got to be ubiquitous.
But like, I'm curious what it means for you because I feel like you know you do Reiki healing and astrology is like your thing. You know,
Yeah,
like
I
where's it
I
headed?
adore it. I really do. I love astrology, and I think like every time I do someone's chart, I see something different that teaches me something
Yes,
else.
same.
And I have a few clients that they ask me hard questions. They want to know. So, and I sit
Okay.
there for hours with them
Uh
with the
huh.
ephemeris, and I'm actually teaching them stuff. And they're
Yeah.
just like, wow, and then they start to get it. So I understand what you're saying. It's not as hard
Hmm.
to do the charts because people already have a basis. Like, oh yeah, well,
Yes.
I know my Venus is in Aquarius and I know that this is
Right.
in my third house. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, this is great. So
Yeah.
you're not
Where
like going from square to
before
one.
it would be like, yeah, I know my son, and I don't even know that well.
Right. And now
But
everyone's like, well, what's your big three? Like, let me know.
yeah, right.
So,
It's literally like, you know, like the new, like, I don't know, back in the day with dating would be like name, like sex, location. Now it's just like son.
yes, age, sex, location.
Yeah. Those are
Those
in the
chat
chat
rooms on
rooms.
AOL.
Yeah, those fucking chat rooms. Oh my God, I went on them. I was such a little
Oh my
pervert.
god. All of us did, let me tell you. That's
Yeah,
all we could do. Like it was like our Instagram back in the day.
I know, so creepy. I would go on like the little sex ones and I'd be like, oh my God. And I would like pop off. I'd like lie about my age. I'm like, I'm 23. And
You're
I
like,
live,
meanwhile, you're like 13.
yeah. And I live in Phoenix.
Not a Phoenix.
And my name is Deanna. I don't know if that's what I
You're
put.
killing me. I
Well, I
love
definitely
it.
lied about my age. I wasn't gonna be like, I didn't even,
Well, yeah.
well, I lied because I didn't even think that a man would even be into the, because I'm sure there are some people like, oh, 13. Like, you know, yum.
Yeah,
Oh,
probably not a good idea for the
no.
guy to engage with you if you said
Yeah.
13.
Thank God I didn't go
Thank God.
there. That
Yeah.
but yeah, so anyway, sun, moon, rising. Now that I've revealed
We
my
went
cyber
down the
days.
rabbit hole.
Oh, yikes. But yeah, it's really cool that people are more aware, they want to be educated, and I find that people are using like readings as a way to also get a lesson.
I think that's very true. And I think I said this the other day, and like, I don't want to ever classify just one decade or, like millennials versus Generation X or
Yeah.
Z or whatever it is. But I feel like people these days are really more into healing their wounds and, their past.
Hmm.
And people like, I guess, like millennial esque or Gen X, it was a little more tough for them, especially the men. I feel like sometimes they were raised to kind of think that like say therapy or healing something by themselves or like the whole meditation thing was very like like there was something wrong as opposed to just
Hmm.
really having this like awesome generation that wants to heal together, grow together, be a little more sensitive to each other's needs and things like that. So I definitely see that as well, and I think it's definitely a beautiful thing because I even notice with people our age feel like they're just a lot of them are closed off
Yeah.
to this whole like healing
Hmm.
um you know conversation. You know what I mean? They're just like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? It just is what it is. You know
Right.
what I mean? But I feel like
Right.
now the more I see as people are coming up and they're their 20s and they're just like, no, I want to be better than this. I just want to have this different path. I want to learn. So I really do see things shifting in the right direction for the
I
most
do,
part.
yeah, I do too. And I think, children now are going to have, are having parents that are incorporating more alternative modalities to help them.
Yes, I
Which is
agree.
great. I mean, the only thing, well, I mean, I guess there's, double-edged sword to everything or two sides to every coin. There's also, kids are more attached to technology than we were,
Hmm.
right? So in
Hmm.
some ways, they're getting nurture and love and different healing that many children didn't have, but then they're also getting real, deep access to 5G energy and, you know, like all
That's
that
very true.
too. So,
We
uh,
used to play kickball in the street and like
yeah,
manhunt and stuff. I mean, I
yeah.
do
Go
think
play
that
in the
kids need to do
woods.
more than that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think kids need to do more of that as well. I don't think it should always be, and I'm a digital person. I mean, I work in
Yeah.
digital production, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you gotta sometimes just shut off your phone and just go engage with people, or you could just do everything online. I swear, you get into this like
Oh, for sure.
like modality of just being like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna be online. Like, no, but
Yeah.
like go enjoy life, go into
Yeah.
nature, take a walk, breathe, like.
Totally. Like we're technically set up now as a culture that you never have to leave your house if you
It's
really
very
didn't want
true.
to. You
It's
could
so
like
scary.
what could you not do? You can work out, you can have meals delivered, you sleep here, you can work here.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't
Seriously.
want to. That sounds gross, but like you
Right.
literally could if you wanted. Like there's technically no need to leave your front door.
No. And now they're making like robot companions. I'm like, no, no, no. Like this is a
No,
lot. Like this
I
is a lot, guys.
know.
Remember we were younger, we used to be like, oh yes, in 20 something, it's going to be this digital world. I'm like, we're here.
I know.
We are
We're,
here. The
we're in
movies
it.
we used to watch, they're here.
I know.
So
So, what would you do if someone reached out to you and was like, I'm getting a robot companion and we're trying to figure out what day she should be born?
oh Lord.
What would you do?
Honestly, first I'd probably gasp a little bit and be like, what? But then I
You
mean, if
want to
they really
create the
wanted help,
perfect birth chart for this
I
robot.
would probably see if like they could be born during a new moon, but like with aspects that are nice. Like you don't want like maybe I mean I was born during a retrograde, so I don't think anything really is
Okay.
wrong with being born during a retrograde. You're more
Right.
analytical.
Yeah.
And I mean it's not like they're really gonna have feelings and emotions.
Well,
So
apparently
like I
you're
wouldn't want like
supposed
a
to.
strong new moon for
Right.
them.
Right. Right. I mean, apparently the technology is able to be so smart that it is able to have emotional intelligence.
Wow. Well
That's
that's amazing.
like we've taught technology how to have an emotion.
Wow.
I
So
don't
do
know
you
what
think
to
like they'll get their feelings hurt if you said something to them like that?
apparently, yeah, like
Wow.
they can get jealous. I was listening to a
Oh,
Joe Rogan podcast about it,
this
and
is amazing.
it was with Whitney Cummings, and she actually got one just because she was like, "This is going to be a great bit." And so they had the robot there, and yeah, the robot would shut down. It would get jealous when she was like talking or paying attention to somebody else. And then like apparently, yeah, it can get like sad if it's not feeling like its needs are met.
Wow, that is like really interesting that the algorithm they use to make it
Right.
that way.
Yeah, and apparently the algorithm just keeps building upon itself. So the algorithm, the more that it's exercised, the stronger it gets, and the more it's able to use what it's already picked up on to continue to create that frequency.
Sheesh, this is interesting. I
I
mean, I
know.
need to like look into this a little bit more because I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't necessarily want one, but I think this is fascinating.
Yeah. Like, am I going to be on Bumble and there's literally going to be like a robot on there being like,
Oh my god, if I see a picture with a robot, I'm
yeah,
out. Like I'm never ever going out there again.
yeah,
Ever.
yeah. They're like, I've got some free time, when my companion's not around or when my companion goes to bed, looking to have a little fun.
Oh my god.
But I do see that I think it's gonna start to mess with our emotions though. Like people are gonna get attached.
It could be. It could be like having a pet, but even more. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And especially for introverts, think about it. Some
right,
people that don't really want to go out and mingle and meet people.
right.
So
This is like a way to feel like,
they have someone there.
yeah, but like isn't there a part of, but here's the thing, this is where like nature rules over technology because deep down though, like doesn't your heart, like your body know like this isn't compatible?
I think so. I mean, I would assume so and think so.
But
Unless you have a lot of Neptune in your chart and just kind of want to like believe that this is a person. I don't know.
right.
Maybe you're gonna go down that road too. I don't know.
But then think about it, like think about the ways that like people fall in love with like people online, like catfish, like
That's very true.
so like if we're able to fall in love with someone via text and then you know, like never even meet them, it's kind of the same. Like but again,
It's
like
very true.
the thought is that there's a human body at the other end, but let's say you never actually like there are times where people like I used to watch catfish. All this stuff fascinates me. People fascinate me. And I would
I
watch
agree.
catfish and like literally I'm like they never talked on the phone, they never video chatted, like they never like took photos in real time being like, "Oh, look, I'm taking a selfie like at this place we talked about."
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I agree. And
yeah.
I think like the one thing is though, you can't have kids with a robot. Like
No.
you could I guess you could kind of sleep with them. I don't know how that goes.
Oh, you can. They're also, I mean, again, this is all from the Whitney conversation. They have all the anatomy available.
Wow.
So it's like a sex toy.
Yeah. This is very fascinating, interesting, and it's a lot at the same time. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, I can't imagine myself being on top of a robot like mounting.
No, yeah, I really don't
this
think
is
so.
my life, and this feels like I'm getting all my needs met.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but the whole catfish thing, I agree. I mean, somebody tried one time, like via Facebook. He looked like this model from Paul Mitchell or something, you know, and he was just like sending me all these things, and he had a kid. All of a sudden, like, he started with my wife died, and then my mother, and then I don't know who, and then he's like, I'm on this photo shoot in Europe, and you know, is there any way you could send me money? And I was just like, block, you're crazy. Like, I was just waiting to see where you went with this. I've watched many episodes of Catfish, and like, I'm just like, no.
Right, like, why is some model from Paul Mitchell messaging me from Europe? Like,
exactly.
Like,
I was just like, wow.
But like, come on, let's be real here.
Seriously. And some of my friends that are like not into online dating at all, like, it just actually, like, they abhor it, like, they hate it so much. They're just like, oh my god, I'd be devastated. I'm like, girl, you need to have a thicker skin than that if you want to date in these days, because there's not a lot of people that are, you know, really upfront. A lot of this exists, and you got to know how to defend yourself against it.
I know.
So it's just, it's tough. It's sad, but it's tough. But this is the way it is now.
It is
19, almost 20.
I know. And people like ballsy. I'm gonna read to you these messages I found today on Facebook. Just because why not? Oh, I keep hitting my microphone. Okay, so this guy, I forget that you know how, like, in your messages, like on Instagram or Facebook, like, there's that whole requests folder.
Yeah, filtered requests. Yep.
Yeah. So I always miss that sometimes, and then I especially miss it in Facebook because I don't go on Facebook as much. Do you still hang out there?
Correct. Hardly, and I totally can agree with you with that. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, I think also too, it's like I can only give so much attention to like everything, so it's just nice to have like one dedicated little place.
I agree.
Instagram seems to be that place. So anyway, I was like somehow in my Facebook messages today, like catching up, and I found the request folder. And so Facebook has a Facebook dating app now.
What?
Yeah. So they'll match you. And I didn't realize that somehow they put me, like, my profile got entered into it. Yay. And winning. And so my profile got put into the Facebook dating. And so I had all these messages from guys. And this one guy was like really persistent. So he goes, hey, I've seen you countless times on Bumble, and I always swipe right, but we never match. And we didn't match on Facebook dating either. Do you have to be a perfect looking, young looking guy? I'm 40 and men get attractive with age. Do I have to be some kind of hot shot who makes 60 grand a year? Nobody ever matches with me. Nobody.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Then 2 days later.
You want to send him like a basket or something.
I know.
Like condolences. Is he okay?
No, I don't know, because he gets weirder. So then 2 days later, he sends me just a smiley face.
Oh boy.
Yeah, then another 2 days later, he sends me another message, and he says, do you think I'm ugly or not some cute young guy?
Oh, no.
I know.
Oh,
I'd
be like, you need therapy, babe.
I know. Then he wrote me a hello. Then he wrote me, I had a girl once scream at me, you're not cute, when I was trying to talk to her at a bar. She wanted Bob Driscoll. Bob Driscoll. Or Matt Weiss.
Is this real life?
I don't know who these people are. And then today, this is what triggered it all. Then he was like, read your messages. And he goes, I'm tired of skinny little guys getting attractive women. That was today.
Wow.
I haven't written back.
There's so much in that.
I know.
It's just so much.
I know.
Oh my goodness. I almost really want to send him like a therapist, like to work with him. I feel bad. Like, that's very sad that somebody would send all of those. It shows like how much he loves himself, which he doesn't, right? Because he thinks that something's wrong with him, and that's why you didn't, swipe. And I just feel bad. I hope he gets help.
I know. We're sending you love.
We're sending you love.
I'm not going to respond.
Bob Driscoll too.
And I blocked you. So
exactly. You are not serving this right now.
Yeah. So but it's just kind of like interesting that we have this culture now, though, where like people are responding in those ways. Like, that wouldn't have happened, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, like, where, like, let's say, like, I did meet that guy at a bar, like, I don't know, like that whole series wouldn't happen. And I think people have this like confused sense of interaction, and like they do stuff like that. Like it's just like, what? Like this is how we're interacting with each other as humans? Like I didn't even see your message and you just are going to keep doing this?
I know it's really tough, but it also shows you. I mean, I think another thing that I get upset about sometimes, and it could be guys, it could be girls, it could be anybody. I feel like a lot of times people are entitled to our energy, and
Ooh.
they kind of start like, it's almost like they start sending these messages. And there's been a few people I've helped free of charge because everybody, I mean, people have done that for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Why not? Like if you have
Yeah.
the time, great. And then I just noticed like other people that are like, they get angry almost like if I'm not free for them, or if I can't, and they start consistently sending more and more messages and more. And I'm just like, wow, like what is this culture that you don't even ask if it's okay? You know what I mean? Or if you think that you're just entitled to talk to me whenever, when I don't even know you on a personal level. It
Right.
just kind of upsets me a little bit. Like it's like I've never been that person. Like I might send a joke here and there, and when you respond, you respond. If you don't, you don't. Whatever. But like,
Oh, I leave it be.
yeah, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like I just never I was never that person that thought, that I was entitled to somebody else's
No.
energy, and I never asked if it was okay to have a conversation that was, 7 pages long or anything like that. Like I get those in my DMs every day. Like
Oh,
a good 5 pages of screenshots of, relationship drama and things. Like I'm like, whoa, like, like when did I become Dr. Phil? Like I don't understand. I know I studied psychology, minored in it, but that doesn't mean that,
right. But now I'm just the free Instagram therapist over here.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really
Mhm.
hard. You got to like learn how to almost draw a line, like have
Yes.
boundaries, still be kind, because I never want to be that
I
person that's
know.
not nice. You know what I mean?
Same.
But
Hmm.
then also like, all right, like you just got to let them know like this isn't okay. You know what I mean? And I do have other clients that are like, hey, dude, I just sent you like a cash app or something. Like I just really have a question whenever you get a chance. And I
Sure.
appreciate those.
Mhm.
Those I really appreciate, because you're like, this is an energy exchange. I'm
Yes.
asking you for help, but I'm also telling you I appreciate you and your time. And that's I'm
Yes.
cool with. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But
Oh,
the ones that send
100%.
me 7-page letters, you just gotta stop. I'm not
No.
appreciative of it.
And the unfortunate thing is, it's like, if you do turn them off or say no or say like, I would love to explore this more, like, here's how you can book a session with me, they'll just move on and pick on someone else to do it with.
Yes.
They'll
Yes.
just find someone
Yes.
else that they can, send all their baggage to and hope that, they'll respond to, for free. And if you're listening and you're starting out and you're thinking that's going to gain their trust and it's going to eventually lead into some kind of cash exchange, it's very unlikely
Hmm.
because
Absolutely.
they're just not in that place. Again, you want to be kind, and I'm always that way too. I always try to, and sometimes, I mean, unfortunately, sometimes I don't always respond. It's not on purpose, but it's just like when you have so many messages flooding
Hmm.
through,
Yep.
you, you try to get to them all, but you don't always. And then when you do, it's just trying to be like really nice about it, or like once in a while, I'll like respond with something if it's like a very quick, like answer that's something I can say like very fast. But even still, it's like after a while, it all starts to add up. And so just really know what your boundaries are and be really in integrity with it. And don't be afraid of saying no to someone because you're afraid that it might turn away business. If anything, it's actually going to grow better business elsewhere.
Absolutely. Because it's like you are being true to yourself, and you're kind of conserving your energy for what you need to be doing, instead of just, saying I don't value myself enough that I'm just gonna spread myself so thin and harm my own
Yeah.
body from being exhausted just to make everyone else happy. So like there really is like a lot of boundary settings that have to happen when you're first starting out. I mean,
100%.
of course, I used to do like free readings just to kind of get
Oh, yeah.
some practice.
Yep.
Everybody does when they first start
Sure.
out, and I think that's awesome. Hey,
Yeah.
first 10 people, like I'll pull a card for you, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I think that's great, like to have that when you first start out. But then like
Mhm.
when you get a good clientele, when you have, some of us have 2 jobs, right? Like I have my day
Mhm.
job and I have my other job. Luckily, I'm so happy for you that you get to do this, your passion, like full time and stuff like that. And hopefully one day I'll move in that direction as well. What people don't understand is when you have like 500 messages, you're not going to be able to give that energy to everybody. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
it's important. It's important to set boundaries when you're
Yeah.
starting off, for
Yeah,
sure.
because again, if you're intuitive, you're also very fragile, and I think a lot of
Hmm.
people don't know how to keep that container um, in alignment, or just realize like we get drained faster, and it's easier for us to get tired or to become depleted, and I think it's all part of the learning process though. Like I kind of had to go through it to like myself. Like people would say like protect your energy and I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it wasn't
Right.
until like I remember there's this one weekend in New York, I was like dead to the world for like 2 days straight. Like I couldn't even move. Like I
Hmm.
was that depleted. And it was like finally the wake up call to be like, okay, I have to really understand this better.
I completely agree with you. I remember one time I used to have a shore house back in the day. It was literally like Jersey Shore, like the
Look at you.
originals. So I was down
Funny.
there. It was
Yeah.
so funny.
Maji.
We were down there. Yeah, right. Fist
Mhm.
pumping with the Guidos.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
And we had this shore house and we were down there in Belmont. And all of a sudden my friend brings somebody and she's like, oh, Maggie's so good with these cards, like even regular playing cards. She can read you and stuff. And I just looked at her. I was like, oh shit, So I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
She comes in. I start doing a few things. When I tell you, I had a headache for 4 days after that one reading because the girl had such like very troubled energy that came with her that I had no idea how to release it. I literally had a migraine for like 4 days, and I didn't pick up cards again. So I want to say honestly, it was like 8 to 10 years later. And then when Karen left me a deck at my house, I was like, oh, let me just play with this a little. And then I started to understand like, I really did want to kind of like go back into that, but now I knew how to protect my energy. I didn't back then. You know what I mean? So it's super interesting.
It is.
Super
And like,
interesting.
remember, because I actually had something similar happen, but in the Hamptons, like same thing, right? Where it's like,
Nice.
I was, there for a weekend and it was actually my cousin invited me. So I didn't know a lot of people. And again, like tarot readings weren't, again, this was like 5 years ago. So again, it was like people were curious about them, not as much as they are now. And I kind of felt like I was obligated to do it because they asked. And there's also, well, this is the thing I think that's tricky for a lot of us. It's like, people will ask and like you're also excited because you love it, right? Like technically at the end of the day, like I love reading cards and I love talking about astrology. I love all of this, but you have to remember like you're not entertainment, and there's also just because you love it doesn't mean that it has to be ingrained in every social experience that you have. It's okay to have space for all of this as well, and that can be energy protection right there.
I totally agree. And like, I love when I get together with my close friends, if they ask me like, oh, what do you think about this new eclipse coming up or whatever? Cool. Like, let's all talk. But when I go somewhere and then they're like, oh, dude, Maggie reads, whatever. And then there's like a line of 5 people waiting to kind of come into the room. I'm like, guys, I'm here just to like, cheers you with this beer that I have in my hand and just chill out. I'm like, this is work for me. I think you guys need to understand, like, this drains me, like, as much fun as it is,
Yeah, especially
so I feel like I've had to tell some people. Yeah, I've had to tell some people, like, all right, guys, like, we'll do this another day, but like, give me a little space to just unwind and chill out. I just want to like, catch up with you guys and just have like a social night out. I don't need to be astro at all times, so I get it though. I get it.
Yeah.
They
No,
mean well.
Of course. And again, it's like, it's also part of like what we love, but it's just like knowing that. And I'm just glad we brought this up, and especially this like feeling of remembering, like what you've said, people are not entitled to our energy. Like, I don't know where that came from. This whole thing of like being able to message people and they're just going to give you, what you need. Like, are we messaging lawyers and being like, I'm getting a divorce. Can you just tell me really quick what the next step?
Exactly. How much will it cost? What's the next step? Can you just like let me know in the state of New Jersey if I can file this on this? It's like, dude, relax, Oh, here's screenshots of what happened between me and my husband. Like, I mean, not really.
Yeah. I mean, though, probably nowadays, I bet some people do get that. I think
probably.
Honestly, probably now because we're so like connected via so many different platforms, it's become more normal.
Well, think about it. We have access to celebrities at any time if we really wanted to send them a message. Like back in the day, you would never have that information. No. Who has somebody's phone number to go text them or send them something? Everyone is just so accessible these days. So I feel like people are just like, oh, let me shoot my shot. Let's see if I get an answer. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Now I have that image of anyone sending me a message going forward, shooting their load at me and seeing if something implants.
I'm dying. You're cracking me up right now.
What I used to do, because I've always been also very obsessed with celeb culture. And so when I was younger, I bought this like book. I don't even know where I got it from. It was like $15 or something. And it sent me a list of celebrity addresses. And so I wrote
star maps.
Yeah, it was like a star maps thing. That's what it was. See, look, I'm trying to make it sound like all like like
I'm dying.
like elusive or something. You're like, no, it's fucking star maps. So I had the star maps, and I would literally I would like send like so many letters every single week, and I would just write to them and like say how much like I love them and blah blah blah. And then once in a while I would get an autograph back, and I think I still have like a pile of autographs.
That's
like,
so cool though.
yeah, that they would send me, and it was like so.
Yes.
I got like Jim Carrey,
Oh my God.
Lopez.
What?
So I have to go figure out where that's at.
I like those. You got some good people.
I did.
A fellow Leo goddess and somebody who's totally woke as Jim Carrey. That's awesome. I love that.
Those were two very good examples, actually.
Absolutely.
Like Andrew Keegan. Like I reached out, of course, to all like the teen heartthrobs.
Who's the one that you love a lot? Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, Jeff Goldblum. I didn't reach out to.
I don't know why I always pictured you marrying this dude. I have no.
Everyone does.
Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, that's Danielle's husband.
I know. I've kind of planted the seed to everyone.
I really do think that.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? He's married. I think I even looked up their charts because.
Oh, he's married. Okay.
Married, but he's married to someone my age.
Oh,
she's like 36, I think, or 37. Like she's definitely more in my age range than his, because he's old.
Yeah, so she said like young enough to be your baby, old enough to be your mama.
Yeah, and they had a baby. They had like a 1 or 2 year old together.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
God bless.
so he's into that.
He is. Why wouldn't he be, right?
Yeah, but I don't think I knew. So I mean, I definitely had a little crush on him when I saw him in Jurassic Park. So when did that come out? Like 92, 93?
Something like that.
Early 90s.
There's so many of them now. I don't even know which one is which. Like there's so many Jurassic Parks and stuff.
But I remember the first one. I remember being like, ooh, like who is this man?
Then he's on like Deal or No Deal, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's the other one. That's Howie Mandel.
Oh, that's Howie Mandel.
That's the other Jewish guy.
That's the other guy.
Yeah. There was like, but I don't think I knew in my head, that I like, would try to find his address and write him a letter.
I would have loved to hear that you got something back from him. That would be really cool.
I was really into Leonardo.
We got to make it happen.
Back then, Leonardo was my man.
Oh my goodness.
Now I'm not attracted to at all.
I think interesting. We've evolved.
Yeah, I feel like
I think he's cool. I think he's cute and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like he's unattractive. Like I don't. No. I wouldn't go that far to be like, he's not good looking. But he definitely. And he's November 13th, I think. Scorpio.
Yeah, he's definitely Scorpio.
Yeah, I remember
I understand what you're saying though, because like even like I was watching Endgame and I was looking at like Captain America, who everybody thinks is like wow, and he's a good looking guy, but I'm not like physically attracted. Like I don't want him. You know what I mean? No. And it's weird. It's like he's gorgeous, but of course he's just not for me. You know what I mean? It's funny. I'm actually really attracted to these days is Dean Schneider. He's like the guy that's always with the lions and stuff like that. He's a Swiss guy that lives in like South Africa, and he's like always running around with lions. I like adore him.
He has an energy, that's for sure.
He does.
His personality, like there's something about him that's very just like, like this is what I do. Like whether
he's a Libra. It's so sweet. And he used to be like a finance guy, and he quit his job and like to be with the animals. And honestly, like for me, like that's the number one thing. Like I, horseback ride every week. I have rescue dogs. Like I am a fanatic with animals. So to me, it's like to find somebody that wants to nurture them like that and not be in the city, like, and just live this country life. It kind of warms my heart. So I'm like, I have a big crush on him.
Yeah. Would you go move to the country?
I would totally move to the country. Absolutely. I think one day I want to have a ranch somewhere.
Really? Leave behind the city?
Yeah, like I would love to have like a little duality, like sometimes kind of, visit, like, be in the city, but then be out in the country, because I really do love that life as well. Yeah, people don't know that much about me until they like really start looking at me on the horses. They're like, oh, she's not just like a city girl with red lipstick. She actually likes the country too.
Yeah, like look at her mount that horse. Okay. All right. Look at her. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It makes sense though. When we have the intuitive side, there's that part of us that does at some point need to be in the nature.
I agree, because I feel like there's a lot of overload. Like luckily I don't work in the city anymore, but I was there for like 12 years, but now I'm in Parsippany, which is like maybe like about 40 minutes out of the New York City. And I think it's more greenery and stuff like that. So I don't have as much overload. Sometimes I'll go to the city office, but I do feel like being around like sentient beings really does calm me down and recharge me and re-energize me in order for me to kind of like, do what I want to do. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it's so funny because when I was like, oh, I'm gonna have you on, and like we're gonna talk about like astrology, and people are gonna learn astrology, but really we're just having a conversation, which I love.
That's very true.
It's amazing. Which most people I feel like expect of the show anyway. They're like, no, we're just here to hear Danielle talk to people she likes. And but that being said, I'm curious. Well, two things, twofold. What are your kind of predictions for 2020? What are you seeing in the trends from your perspective?
I think for me, honestly, I see a lot of change, and I see a lot of change to this country, right? Like for a lot of things that have happened, and I've said this probably for a good 5 years, like literally the whole government thing is going to shift big time. We already seen this happening the other day. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are kind of divided. The whole thing is going to happen again like it did last time with, the parties kind of like going at each other and, not really having full resolution because there's so many people that are divided. And being that a lot of the birth charts, I think, of the US is Cancer, I think. And I believe there's a few eclipses next year in Cancer.
Yes, there are.
So that's a big thing. And especially Capricorn, right? Because that's very much like structure and environment and government and all of that kind of stuff when it comes to building. And I really do see that as a big theme. I think a lot of people are emotionally charged to speak up against injustice. I feel like a lot of people are just wanting to take up space and be heard. And I think that that's really going to translate a lot into 2020, especially with the Pluto return to the US chart.
I was especially that this morning. That's really And if you want more insight around 2020, what's happening astrologically, if you're looking to get a little bit more of an understanding around how the planets work and relate to each other, then I really encourage you to check out my revised astrology guide for 2020. This is a digital experience where you learn a little bit more about each and every sign, the meaning of the planets, start to find all the different trends when it comes to retrogrades, eclipses, and how it relates to your own chart so you can best prepare for the year ahead. This is such a great guide to dive into if you're new or a little bit more, feel like you're a little bit more than a novice when it comes to astrology, but you're ready to take to the next level. This is the guide for you. Literally, we will talk about all the trends, and then you can take those trends, you can take your birth chart, and I show you how to fuse them together. It's really groovy. It's really amazing. It also comes with a webinar that shows you how to use the guide, as well as a really groovy meditation that channels a message for you for 2020. It's amazing. So if you're interested in getting that, check the link in the show notes or go to my website, danielmercurio.com, scroll to the bottom. You'll see 2020 Astrology Guide. Opt in for that experience. I would do it sooner rather than later so you can tap into all of the trends that are happening here and now. It's really groovy. And here's to 2020. We've got 6 eclipses. Every planet will be retrograding, but we're here for it, my friends. We're aware. We're ready. And we're owning up to who we are. We are owning up to our power, and we are moving through with love, devotion, determination, and fierceness. Let's have at it. That's funny you mentioned that.
How do you feel about this?
I mean, similar in some ways. I mean, I think, some of the stuff that we recognize this week from the political standpoint definitely helped shift some thoughts that I had, because before that kind of went down with the impeachment, I was really like, what are we doing here? Like, is anything going to really be changing? Are we just creating more chaos? Do we have any kind of strategy? Is there any kind of structure around change? Do I think there's still going to be divides in a lot of ways? Absolutely. Do I think like now we're just like going to be smooth sailing? No, I think 2020, we still have our work cut out for us. And I think a lot of the we're going to have Venus and Mars retrogrades this year, right? So there's definitely going to be more work around kind of the divide between the masculine and the feminine and how we're deciding to come together. And also how are we going to make peace with the fact that our nation is still at war? What do we want to do about it? And I do think, to what you're saying, is that's where people are going to be having more of a voice than ever before. I think people are going to, especially with the Capricorn influences,
Mm-hmm.
creating more of a foundation that is structured, that is responsible. So they're not just speaking out erratically. I think this past year, there's been a lot of people thinking or speaking before they think it through. Whereas I think now people are thinking things through a little bit. How do I want to actually like process this before I get it out and I project it to the world? So I do see some more cohesion and a little bit more structure with the way that we're moving things forward. But I still think there's going to be a lot of unknown, and we've got to
Mm-hmm.
just take it day by day.
I totally agree. And I feel like there's going to be other things that like start to come out from underneath. Like it's
Mhm.
almost like I think a lot, especially in the generation of Pluto Scorpio, right?
Yeah.
And then with everything coming back, it's I think it's going to be a little tough because things are going to come, into like that that are hidden. I think
Yeah.
people are going to understand that they're going to start to see clearly.
Mm.
And I think with that 2020 vision in 2020, right? No pun intended.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people are going to wake up a little bit more and just
I
be like,
think so.
okay, like you said, what are we doing? Because yes, I get it. You might support one party or the other or none at all or whatever it is, but like, where is the humanity around this? Like, how do we make it so that us as a collective can move forward in the best way possible? And I think like that's a conversation people need to be having. It's not really like, oh, I can't stand this guy or I can't stand this
Yeah.
woman. Like we got to kind of do better as a
Right.
whole.
I agree. I agree. It's not enough to just like point fingers and just like
No.
talk about like who you don't like. Okay, great. Like you've had the last 3 years to talk about that. Let's let's
Let's
talk
move
about
forward.
what change is really going to look like, and we'll see. But I agree that I think we're less in shock and we're less fearful. And I also think like when we look at the industry of people from the wellness healing space and whatnot, like I was saying earlier in our conversation, it's time for us to step up too and say like, here's how I can help you so that you can do the things that you and I were just sharing, and like offering spaces and services for people to feel healed and fulfilled and start to become more aware of their own blocks, so that maybe it will help us from a collective perspective.
I completely agree. And I think it's a beautiful thing, that all of us that, kind of identify with healing and things like that, just really be kinder to one another, just try to understand each other's point of view and not just, jump down each other's throats or get angry. Everybody's very passionate about what they believe in, and rightfully so, right? But not all of us are the same. You know what I mean? And we have like different ideals and morals and values and all that kind of stuff. So I just feel like if we can find a happy middle, we would be in such a better place.
Yeah.
And even with the whole party thing, like
Mhm.
I feel like a Republican and a Democrat and independent, they need to get together more. They need to like,
Seriously.
just
Have a
really
beer.
talk. Yeah, man, like have a conversation, like really figure it out. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like every couple years, everything changes to one side or the other.
It's
Like
true.
I just feel like we're not getting anywhere. You know
No,
what I
I
mean?
think it's silly. Like I really do. I'm not like I've never been the person to like pick sides. Do I lean in favor towards a certain side? Yes, I do. However, I still see the problems within that and the inconsistency because of it.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, so we'll see. But I do like some of the structure. I at least personally coming through.
Yeah, I can definitely mess with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you think astrology is headed? Like not from a trends perspective, but like from like the system itself, astrology for 2020, like the way people interpret it.
Honestly, I feel like it's evolving and expanding. I see a
Mm.
lot of people, especially, I mean, I don't know if you ever go on Twitter, but geez, like the conversations that happen on there, I'm like, woo. But
I
people
gotta do
have
that.
different ideas. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like a lot of people use, like the whole house systems. People
Sure.
use Placidus. People
Sidereal.
use Equal. People use Sidereal.
Hmm.
Vedic astrology is,
Hmm.
in the mix as well. I see people using the 12-letter alphabet, people hating it and going crazy about it. People like it's just everybody is just in flux, and I feel like there's just different ways to do things, and I really don't think it's going to go in one direction. I feel like people keep evolving it and growing it and shifting it and giving new ideas to it and being like, well, what about this? Like if we look at it this way,
Hmm.
incorporating all these asteroids and all this kind of stuff, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's no longer classical anything. It's kind of like build your own chart.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think the more knowledge is power, and more the
Yeah.
better for everybody. You know what I mean? But I feel like everybody learning, their own chart, and especially with all these apps coming out, right? Like you got the pattern, you got CoStar, you got like all these other things that are in the mix. that are showing people at least the basics, right?
Yes.
So I think it's pretty cool. And even like if they wanted to start pulling up like, you know, the synastry and stuff like that, like seeing how you match with somebody else, like I think it's pretty cool. Like they have access. The most important thing is there's access to learning. And I think that's where it's really going to go. I think like a lot of people are going to be able to pull up their own things as opposed to going to us to just having to learn the basics and then kind of like coming prepared. Like I got some questions on what you feel, you know what I mean, about this and this in my chart, like these big things that are coming. You know, if you have this crazy aspect to an eclipse, you're going to want to like prepare for it. You're going to want to know what could happen, you know? So I think like that's where it's really headed, you know, like an deep understanding and then consulting with people that are professionals to really ask the like pertinent questions to get your answers, you know?
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective. And I see that too. And, you know, individuals are kind of taking the power in their own hands and creating really cool awareness, but also still, you know, knowing where their limitations are. So being able to open up into resources and individuals that could help from there. And I think that's the best way to do it. You know, I always share that astrology is an intuitive science. It's, you know, part like, yes, these are the facts and this is the technology, and then it's intuitive. So it's only going to keep evolving, and there is no right or wrong way to look at your chart in essence. It's really what feels good to you, and then how can you, you know, leverage and solidify some of the mechanics so that it really is cohesive.
I agree.
I'm here for it.
Cheers to that.
So good. Well, so good having you on.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course, that was so fun.
It was fun. I hope to see you soon in like 2020. If you're in New York, hopefully I get to see you.
I know. I don't like to be there in winter.
No, I don't blame you actually.
But I really would like to plan something for spring. So that's the next time. And be intentional about it.
Love it.
Cool. All right. Well, I adore you. Thank you so much.
I adore you back. Thank you.
How can people follow you on Instagram and all the things?
It is at Astromaji, ASTROMAJI on Twitter and Instagram.
Easy.
Easy breezy.
Love it. In the show notes. All the things.
All the things.
Awesome. Well, adore you, my Leo sis. Thank you so much.
Adore you too. Thank you so much.
So tell me, did you love this episode? While I may not need your validation, I certainly love it. So go ahead and make sure that you are following or subscribed or have reviewed this podcast in whatever app you listen to. And let's support the show by supporting each other. Share this out with a friend or someone that you know would just love to have a juicy listen. I adore you. You're amazing. Thank you.